Fantastic. We are live now on YouTube. We can start. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. I know it's a it's a Sunday afternoon. Sorry, I'm still on Friday modus. Got it. Yes. For the ones who do not know me, my name is Caroline Mwangi. I am the co-founder of the AG Career Hub. It's a community for Kenyan professionals in Germany where we are focusing more on educating people about career opportunities in Germany. We try to connect people with mentors or people who can basically share information about growing a career in Germany. We are also focusing also on business opportunities, and we are the linkage. We say we are working on being the linkage between Germany and Kenya in this sense. So I'm very, very honored to have Evelyn Nyambura. We have interacted on a few sessions with Nyambura, and she joined us during our last year's event in Frankfurt. She's been fighting for us in this country. But she'll tell us more about that. So today's topic is about like which opportunities do we have? We have people who did German back home, DAAD, or they have this background and they don't know what to do when they come to this country. Or when they're still back home, they really do not know what to do. And also there are people who are like, I cannot afford to finance my studies in Germany. So she's a beneficiary of Epos scholarship. So she'll also take us through the scholarship. So thank you so much, Evelyn, for creating time. So I'll hand over the microphone, and then after you finish, then we'll open the Q&A for people can ask their questions. And if you're here in Germany, we have an event. Looking forward to seeing you on the 22nd of July. I'll drop the link in the chat so that at least you can book, get your ticket, and go and meet other people there. It's just like meet and network and get to meet different people. So that at least when you go back home, your bags are full. We're also going to have some entertainment in the evening. Like we'll share the information with time. Sawa, thank you so much, Evelyn. Let me hand over to you. And yeah, the floor is yours. Thank you. Karibu sana.
Asante, Carol. Thank you for having me. I hope everyone can hear me clearly. So as Carol shared, I am Evelyn Nyambura Mungai. A bit of history. This is my favorite question when someone asks me, how did you end up studying German? And to be honest, when I joined Form 1 in high school, we were to choose between French and German, and I attended the French class because I was like, everyone has studied French, so I will do French. But can you believe a whole 2 hours, the teacher never smiled, not once. So the next class, I went to the German class. And the first lesson, we got chocolate. So that is how I ended up studying German. Anyway, yes, so I did German in high school.
Introduction.
Yeah, I did German in high school. And then when we were picking our courses for university, I had my first 2 choices, and then Bachelor of Education German as a foreign language was my third option, and that was the option I got as a course to pursue in Kenyatta University. It's a 4-year course. So basically for you to get to university with German, to study German at the university, at least at bachelor level, you need to have done it in high school. Then during my 4-year study program in Kenyatta University, that was the first contact I had with DAAD. So in the 3rd year of our studies, DAAD used to sponsor a competition every year where you had to write an essay, and the essay was basically comparing a political structures or development structures between Kenya and Germany. So I took part in the competition and I got my first scholarship, which was a 1-month course during summer to come and do study German at the university in Tübingen. So I am based in the south of Germany. This is a map of Germany. So Tübingen would be about here.
Are you sharing your screen? Because we cannot see your screen.
Apologies.
No
I forgot
problem.
to do the screen sharing.
No problem.
There we go. Yeah, here we go. Yeah. So this is the south of Germany. This is the Stuttgart area. So that's Germany. This is the Stuttgart area, and Tübingen would be around here. So that was the first scholarship I got from DAD. I did a 1-month course, fully paid. They paid for flights, they paid for accommodation, and they didn't. That first time they didn't give us pocket money, but anyway, so it was paid for, and it was the first time I ever stepped out of Kenya, and it was really, really interesting because before I came here, my German was 2, 3 sentences here and there. But the 1 month I spent in Tübingen, I came back and I was on a roll. I was flowing. My language was flowing. But aside from that, that course had literally anyone you can think of from all over the world.
Mm.
And Tübingen is also a university city, so we got to experience the student life. We got to experience a lot of cultural exchanges and just basically everything that introduces you to life in Germany. So after my the first scholarship, I finished my studies in KU. I did train to become a teacher, but the thing with studying a language is you can do a lot more. So I taught for about 2 years, and then I switched to a German tourism company where I worked for 5.5 years. The biggest market for the tourism company was the German market. So I was basically working there because of my language, and I was my title was trip coordinator, but it was basically guest relations management. So we would take care of the German customers who were coming to, we sold about 13 destinations in Africa. So I would handle the German market for Africa, basically.
Mm.
Then after 5.5 years, I tried looking for something new to do. And that's how I ended up then applying for my second scholarship, which is my master's in Germany. So if you can still see my screen, let's start.
It was a very nice introduction. So sometimes some of this competition can take you very far.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. We actually did a story of a Kenyan who did his PhD in mechatronic. And he also came through the same way. He actually got a scholarship for an internship. So he came here for an internship for 1 semester.
Yeah.
And then when he was here, he managed to pave his way for his scholarship. And that was quite nice. Yeah. Very eye-opening also for him.
Yeah.
Super.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So now that I had learned about DAD from my university, that's how I ended up applying for the Epos program. So I will give you a quick run through of what the Epos program is. So the first thing is the different types of DAD scholarships. There's the Epos courses which are offered, and there's also a different course that they recently introduced 2 years ago, which is Leadership for Africa. There's the Helmut Schmidt program. This is political science based. And then DAD also offers in-country or inter-region scholarships within Africa. So it's not all scholarships offered by DAD that bring you to Germany. You also have the opportunity to go to countries like Zimbabwe, Ethiopia, basically within Africa. So DAD has a very wide, what do you call it, range of scholarships that they offer. So the Epos program is development related. This means they focus on specific fields of study. So these are the various fields. There's media studies, there's medicine and public health, there's social sciences, education and law, engineering related studies, development cooperation, and so forth and so on. So what I applied for, which is unfortunately not offered anymore, was I applied for a master's in business administration, international management. So that master's program, if I like showing the map because it gives someone an idea of where I am talking about. So the master's program I did was in a very small city here called Newtingen. You can do a city tour in this city, the whole city, 40 minutes. It's not that big. And
it was my first town. That was my first small city. Yes. when I came here.
Oh, that's good to hear. At least I wasn't the only one in a small
Yeah,
city.
I was in a Wolfschlugen. I don't know if you heard of
Yeah,
Wolfschlugen.
Wolfschulungen. Yeah, I was there. So the the MBA I did was in Newtingen. It's a very small city. It's also it's not a university, but it's called a Hochschule. So a Hochschule is another type of school that offers master's courses or bachelor's courses, but it's not the same as a university, so to say. So the thing about the Epos programs is they work very closely with the Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development. And even if you look at the type of courses that are offered under Epos, they're development related. So as a first hint, they should tell you whatever it is you're studying is supposed to help you back at home. So what they do is the primary objective is to train specialists from development and newly industrialized countries. This is part of the agenda for sustainable development goals. And the scholarships are most of the times at least 2 years, and you have to have professional experience, prior professional experience. The EPOS programs are also, you require a minimum of a bachelor degree, and the EPOS programs are for masters and PhD. So it's not just masters only. I did a master's, but there are also PhD programs on offer. And then what else did I want to add about the EPOS programs? Yeah. So if you look at the list of programs that are offered, they're very, very specific. So they focus on specialized fields, and even the training you get on the programs themselves, they're very specialized in the sense of the course is tailored in such a way that you mix in a very international group. Like where I studied, we were 20 students, 10 nationalities. And that is excluding the German students. We only had 6 German students in our group. Everybody else was from a different country. So it's very international based. It brings people from very different, at least for our MBA program, there were people from very different walks of life. We all had a different bachelor's degree, so to say. Then what else did I want to share? So here I just did a slide where I put in the important links. I will share this with Carol, and maybe you can get it from her because it directly links like where all the specific information for the application requirements are. The most important thing I'd like to mention about the application process for any DAD scholarship, so to say, is that most of the applications are done 2 years in advance. If you do it, it is possible for you to apply 1 year in advance, but most of the scholarships are already on offer 2 years in advance. So the earlier you apply, the better for you, or the higher chances you have of joining. So like I sent my scholarship, I did my scholarship application 1.5 years before the course started. And then the good thing about this DAD scholarship was also depending on the type of master's degree or PhD degree you apply for, it can either be in English or in German. So we were lucky because our course was 60% German, 40% English. So what happens is based on the funding that year, DAD will either pay for you a 6-month German course in Germany, or if it's an English course, most of the times, at least from the recent students I've met, you'll come to Germany 2 to 3 months for a German language course. So it's basics. What I always recommend to anyone who intends to come to Germany, please learn the language. It is the most important thing you will ever do for yourself when coming here. So the other thing I have to mention about the EPOS course is, yeah, so the benefits. So I mentioned the language course. It can be 2 months, 4 months, or 6 months. Then for my program, we had additional training. So I did MBA International Management, but there was a primary focus on intercultural competence in the course I did. And this I've noticed is something very common amongst all Epos programs. There's a special focus program as well that is offered on top of what you're studying, which is very good, I think, because the intercultural competence is primarily what I use in my current role. Then you get a monthly stipend, which is 850 euros currently, but it's subject to change. Then you get adequate health, accident, and insurance cover in Germany. So you also get a travel allowance that's for your flights to and from, and then in country as well, because what happens is based on what is happening in that year, your language course will most likely be in a different city than where you will go for your master's or PhD program. So they also offer transport within, like we did our language course in Munich, and I was coming to study in Newtingen, which is around the Stuttgart area. So this transportation between Munich, so the move between Munich and Stuttgart was funded by DAD. One thing I forgot to mention is during the language course, DAD provides you with pocket money. So the house is paid by DAD, the school is paid by DAD, and then you get monthly pocket money. During our time, it was about 400 euros, and everything else is paid for. And then what we did, at least when I came, which I found was a very good thing, we lived in an apartment. We were four ladies, all of us from Africa. So my housemates came from Uganda, Ghana, and Nigeria. And I was from Kenya, which was a really good thing for settling in at the beginning because we had similar cultural background. And yeah, it was just made everything a lot easier. Um, they can, so the accommodation is also dependent on what is available because housing is a very big issue in Germany. So you can either live in an apartment like we did, or you can live in a school hostel. Like the language school we went to had a hostel for students. So a student hostel, if you have the funding, because some students did have the funding, you can also get a private apartment, or you can also request to be hosted by a guest family, which I also think is a very good idea, especially if you want to integrate quickly. And a lot of the families who host students here are very, very supportive. So it really helps. Um, where was I? Ah, yeah. So, and then during your MBA or PhD course, you get a yearly study allowance, and then the semester fees, for example, are subsidized. So a lot of German universities, except here in the south where I currently live, German universities and Hochschule are free of charge. All you pay is let's call it an administration fee, which is not a lot. It's about 300 euros per semester just for administration in schools. And if you're a DAD scholar, that is subsidized. Then what also happens is you get monthly rent subsidies, and if you're accompanied with your family or with a family member or children, your family will also, your allowance will be adjusted to suit this. But this is primarily as well for PhD students. For master students, you have to give some sort of proof that you really need your family to come here, because with the Epos programs, as I mentioned, it's development related. So the idea is you're coming to gain skills here to apply back at home. What also happens is, as I mentioned before, the housing is a big issue in Germany. You may find, like I studied in a very small city, village, let's call it like that. So rent was not expensive, but I remember for some students who are studying, for example, in Berlin or these other big cities, Hamburg and so, rent can be really, really expensive. So what DAD does is you can apply for rent subsidy, meaning on top of the 850 you're getting, because the idea is the 850 is supposed to be your upkeep. So you pay rent, you buy food, pay for your transport using the 850. So what they do, you can apply for additional funding on top of the 850 just to cover your rent expenses. Because for example, in a city like Hamburg, if you're paying rent 600 euros, that means you only have 250 left to survive on, which is not enough. So DAD give you that option to top up. Then what also happens is if you're a DAD scholar, you get access to a sponsored internship. So this happened for me when I finished my studies, or at least during, you can do this during your studies or after your studies. I got an additional scholarship for 6 months to do an internship at UNESCO. Yeah, it's the UNESCO Institute for Lifelong Learning in Hamburg, and it's a 6 months fully paid internship. So the same conditions you have during your scholarship, you also have for the internship, because the big organizations like UN don't pay because they run on funding. So DAD actually sponsors you to go and gain experience in those companies for 6 months. And it was a really, really good opportunity because for you to be able to actually get experience or even get into the job market in Germany, you need to show prior experience. So for me, it was a bonus that I got a sponsored internship in Germany to do
Mhm.
this. And it's simply because I was a DAD scholar.
Wow.
So basically, I did not update the
Someone
picture.
someone was saying the fee, the monthly stipend was increased to 931 euros.
Yeah. So yes. So basically, here I wrote subject to change.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it is subject to change. So they adjust it based on basically based on what is happening.
Mm.
Do you still see my screen?
Mm, no, not anymore now. Now we can't see your screen.
One moment. I need to share this again. Here. And so basically, just to give you a short summary of my experience during the DAD scholarship in the MBA program, the picture you see on the left is one of my favorite pictures, at least for my study program. So I did an MBA and it was a very intensive course. It was
Mm-hmm.
18 months. We
Mm-hmm.
were in class Monday to Saturday from 8 to 8. And yes, it was a lot of learning. And if you I previously mentioned that we had a lot, our focal point for the program was intercultural competence. So what also happened within our program is we had a lot of group work. So exams were not only based on the written exam, we had oral exams, we had group work exams, meaning you had to be a very active group member for you to get the points. And this picture was taken on a Sunday. So this was a course we did where you had to run a company, a virtual company, and we had to fill out all these data sheets, and then this was fed into a computer and it would calculate for us how well or badly your company is doing. And I remember this was at the end of a very tough week because we'd had midterm exams during that week. And then Sunday, 10 a.m., we had group work to finish because the deadline to submit was on Monday. So it was a really intense course. As I mentioned, we were 10 nationalities in our class, and the group work could get tricky at times because remember, these are different cultures, different people, different ways of working, and which was why we also got the intercultural training on top of this, because we needed to learn how to work with each other despite of our differences and also with our differences. Then another important thing I believe we got from our master's program was we didn't just do classes only, we also had tutorials. So the students from upper semesters would have slots on the timetable and they would give us tutorials. So like, for example, we had one classmate, he had studied social development before. So he had never been in a business class. And then you have management accounting in German. It's quite it's tough to catch up quickly, which was why these tutorials were offered, and they were offered by senior students. So that was a really big plus for me. And then what also happened was within our program, we had the opportunity every semester to visit companies in Germany. So we would visit companies, we would see what they do, experience what they do. We had the opportunity to ask questions, and the good thing was all our professors were people who were working in the industry. So it's not a full-time teacher who is just based in the school. These are people who have real jobs and they teach part-time at the university, which was really good because you're 100% guaranteed that the information you're getting is what is currently happening in the market, and it's not just textbook knowledge. So that was really, really cool. And then what we also had in the Hochschule, at least for my master's program, was yeah, I did mention the internship. I don't believe I've forgotten anything, but if I have, I will mention it a bit later. So yes, this is what I wanted to mention. So what also happens is, because our professors worked in the industry, if you're very good at networking, which I believe most people are, at least if you come from Kenya, you had the opportunity. These same professors would recommend you within these companies to do a working student job, because as a student, you're allowed to work maximum 20 hours a week. So if you're in good terms with your professor, he will recommend you in the company he works, and you get a working student job. As I shared, our timetable was a bit tight because we were in class Monday to Saturday, but at least as the second semester started and the third one, things got a bit easier. At least you would have one day which is free, and then you were able to do a working student job. The other thing they would do, they would also recommend you for internships. And in the end, I can also see a lot of some of our colleagues were able to get jobs within the same companies where the professors worked, which I think is really good because it gives you a direct access into the market. So that is basically what happened to me. And because I like telling stories, I have a funny story for you. I've mentioned a lot during this presentation that we did a lot to do with intercultural competence. So when I finished my studies, um, my professor, when I handed in my master thesis, my professor was on an exchange in the US for about 3 months. So I had to wait for him to come back to give me my grade for my master's thesis. So in between, as you're waiting, I've already finished studying, so I'm no longer on a student visa. So I had to change to a job seeking visa. And for me to apply for the job seeking visa, I needed to show proof of support. So where I was living back then, there was a supermarket about 800 meters from where I lived. And I applied for the supermarket job as a cashier and I got it. So I say this in all my interviews. Yeah, I am very well trained in intercultural competence. So I start working at the supermarket, me a Kenyan. The only type of salad I have ever seen my entire life is lettuce. You get to the supermarket, there are about 5 different ones. Tomatoes, the same thing. There are about 6 different types of tomatoes. And then the problem is, where the cashier, the that cashier machine, it was practical. It was not sophisticated. Meaning, if someone was a vegetable, you had you you had to wait, and to wait, you needed a code for the vegetable. So here I am, me Kenyan. I don't even know what this vegetable is called. So obviously, I don't know what the code is. So every single time a customer came, the first thing I would ask them is, "What is it?" And if they also did not know, you had to wake up and then you walk all the way to the vegetable stand, get the name and the code, and then you come and key it in. So that was a really humbling experience, because in as much as I tell people intercultural competence, that was my first lesson in intercultural competence. So yeah, so experience is everywhere. It's not just on the job that you're trained to do. That was my first real life experience with intercultural competence. So nowadays, when I go to that supermarket and I see there's a new person at the counter, I always smile, because I think it's God's way of making a joke with me. You will see them reach for the book, going to check the code, and I am there. It's 600. And they look at you. And I tell them, I have been here before. So that's it from my end. I am now open for questions.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for the lovely story, also with a lot of passion. Before people ask questions, there's someone who was asking, how do you apply for these paid internships? I think that can also be interesting. Does it still happen, or can people still apply? And also, greetings from your teacher, Lona or Coco. She says she's very happy to
Oh,
see you.
Dr. Coco.
Yes, she's very happy.
Yes, she
Yes.
was my German teacher. Best
Genau.
teacher ever.
Eine warme Dusche von ihr soll ich
Yeah.
ausrichten. Okay, yeah, let's go to how do you apply for the internships?
So the internships, those internships are only accessible for someone who is a DAD scholar. So it's a very closed network. And then what they do is DAD are the ones who approach the universities and announce that this internship positions are open. And then to apply for this internship position, you need a recommendation letter from your professor, from the program. Like for us, it was the program director. So he has to recommend you, and then you can apply for the position. Yeah.
Not so easy, but doable.
Not so easy, but doable. But the
Yeah.
good thing is, those internships as well are not just in Germany. Like one of the ladies in our class, she went to New York. So they're all over the world, they're global. And it's paid for by DAD.
Yeah. What I've also come to know is that this in-house local scholarships that you shared, you may also get an opportunity to come for an internship in Germany or for a next semester abroad. So don't ignore them because they're local. Any scholarship is always good, and you never know, it can always be an eye-opener for a job market, for an exchange program. Just apply and you have nothing to lose. Yes. Okay, so from my side, thank you so much for the wonderful information. Let me stop now recording so that at least people can ask the questions and ask the questions freely.